Ladies and gentlemen, the story surrounding Mitch McConnell's hospitalization nearly 3 weeks after suffering cardiac arrest, combined with broader questions involving Chinese intelligence activities, has become increasingly concerning. On July 2nd, the office of the 84-year-old senator released a brief statement saying that McConnell was continuing to recover while working with his staff on Kentucky issues and Senate business during the congressional recess. Yet, despite that statement, no photographs, videos, or direct public remarks from McConnell have been released. As the days have passed, social media has filled with growing demands for tangible proof that the longtime senator is still alive. The reality is that the public still has no independent confirmation of his condition. He has reportedly remained hospitalized for nearly 3 weeks. That uncertainty has also raised broader questions about access to classified intelligence briefings that McConnell receives as a senior member of key Senate committees, including those overseeing defense matters and Senate rules, positions that carry significant responsibility for handling sensitive national security information. Under Kentucky law enacted in 2024, if a U.S. Senate seat becomes vacant, a special election must be held. That legal requirement has fueled widespread, but unverified, speculation about McConnell's health and what it could mean for a seat long considered safely Republican before his current term expires in January 2027. Numerous reports and theories are now circulating online, and it's worth examining them carefully from every angle. One recent claim alleges that some Republicans, or more specifically, figures criticized by conservatives as rhinos, Republicans in name only, are deliberately concealing McConnell's medical condition in order to avoid triggering a special election that could potentially give Representative Thomas Massie, a frequent critic of Donald Trump, a path to the U.S. Senate. Before going any further, however, it's important to acknowledge that this theory remains speculative and appears difficult to substantiate. Even if the worst were to happen and Senator McConnell were to pass away while still in office, any winner of a Kentucky special election would serve only until January 2027, when McConnell's current term is already scheduled to expire. It's also worth remembering that McConnell has already announced he will not seek re-election. He planned to retire at the end of his term, and given his ongoing health struggles, many observers now believe they understand why. Under that scenario, whoever won the special election would likely serve only a few months before Kentucky voters elected someone for a full 6-year Senate term. That is simply how Kentucky law works. Independent journalist Desiree Townsend has advanced a separate argument that she believes deserves serious attention. According to Townsend, Senator McConnell has remained hospitalized for nearly 3 weeks. She argues that the gravity of the situation should not be underestimated, particularly because McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao, traveled to China just days after his hospitalization, where she reportedly met with several senior Chinese officials. That sequence of events has prompted broader questions about national security. If Senator McConnell were genuinely unable to carry out his duties independently, what safeguards exist to ensure that classified intelligence briefings, defense appropriations, or other highly sensitive congressional materials could not be accessed, discussed, or handled by individuals operating behind the scenes? Given the timing of Elaine Chao's trip and her reported meeting with China's vice president, some observers have also questioned what topics may have been discussed. More than 3 weeks have now passed since Mitch McConnell last appeared in public. Since suffering cardiac arrest, the public has received no detailed medical updates beyond brief statements from his office. Reports indicate that McConnell went into cardiac arrest, received CPR from emergency responders, and was then transported to a hospital. Weeks later, Americans still have neither seen nor heard directly from him. As of now, there is no independent public confirmation of his current condition, a fact that many commentators argue deserves greater public scrutiny. Critics have also noted that Elaine Chao no longer serves in any official capacity within the U.S. government, yet traveled to China only 3 days after her husband was hospitalized. Some commentators have speculated that if Chao had been handling her husband's affairs, her departure from the United States could raise additional questions about whether McConnell might be unconscious or otherwise unable to manage his own responsibilities. However, it is important to emphasize that these remain unverified theories and that no public evidence has been presented to support such claims. Another theory circulating online suggests that if McConnell's condition were kept confidential for several additional weeks, Kentucky might avoid triggering an earlier special election under state law. According to that argument, Representative Thomas Massie could choose to run and might have a realistic chance of winning, although even commentators advancing the theory acknowledge they cannot say with confidence that such an outcome would occur. Others argue that even if Massie failed to win, his candidacy could divide the Republican vote enough to create an opening for Democratic candidate Charles Booker. Still, regardless of who prevailed in any special election, that individual would serve only until January 2027, when voters would elect a senator to a full new term. What concerns some observers even more is that McConnell currently serves as chairman of the Senate Rules Committee, a position with substantial influence over Senate operations. In one report filmed outside George Washington University Hospital, independent journalist Desiree Townsend said that the situation had entered its third week since McConnell's reported medical emergency on June 14th. Behind her, Capitol Police vehicles remained stationed outside the hospital. Townsend suggested that their continued presence could indicate McConnell was still receiving treatment there, though that has not been officially confirmed. Townsend also said that widespread public attention only intensified after she released emergency dispatch audio that she claimed showed McConnell had been found unconscious and required CPR before being transported to the hospital. According to her, many Americans still do not fully appreciate either the seriousness of the medical emergency or the constitutional questions that could arise if Congress lacks a clear mechanism for addressing a lawmaker who becomes incapable of performing official duties, particularly when national security responsibilities are involved. Townsend further pointed to comments made by Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who told Politico that he had spoken with McConnell the day after his hospitalization and that the senator had sounded great. To many observers, those remarks have become a source of renewed skepticism. Critics question how someone who reportedly suffered cardiac arrest could be described as doing well while remaining hospitalized nearly 3 weeks later without making any public appearance. Townsend argued that Thune's statement helped calm media attention for nearly 2 weeks until she released the emergency dispatch recording. She also suggested that if McConnell has remained hospitalized without communicating directly with many of his Senate colleagues, Thune's earlier remarks may deserve closer scrutiny. At the same time, Townsend acknowledged that Thune may simply have been attempting to respect McConnell's medical privacy. She also returned to the issue of Elaine Chao's reported meeting with China's vice president just 3 days after her husband's hospitalization. According to Townsend, the concern is not that Elaine Chao traveled to China, but rather that she now serves only as a private citizen and holds no official position within the U.S. government. At a moment when her husband, a sitting United States senator, had reportedly suffered a life-threatening medical emergency, she met with one of China's highest-ranking officials, while the American public, many members of Congress, and possibly even officials within the administration still had little clarity regarding McConnell's condition. For many commentators, the optics of a spouse leaving the country during such a critical medical crisis have inevitably fueled further questions, media scrutiny, and public speculation, even though many of the underlying claims remain unverified. According to Townsend, the meeting with China's vice president was not merely a routine diplomatic courtesy. Even if it had been scheduled well in advance, she argues that Beijing's decision to receive Elaine Chao suggests that Chinese officials still viewed her as someone with political significance. That, she says, raises a series of questions. Did Elaine Chao convey any messages to China's leadership? Did she discuss U.S. policy? Or was she viewed as an informal channel for conveying non-public information, including details about her husband's medical condition? Townsend stresses that these are questions she believes deserve answers, not conclusions that have been established. She also notes that, as a sitting United States Senator, Mitch McConnell has access to some of the nation's most highly classified intelligence briefings involving U.S. national security. Those classified sessions may include information regarding military operations, developments involving Iran, and confidential discussions surrounding the defense budget, an area in which McConnell has long played an influential role in the Senate. If Senator McConnell were genuinely no longer mentally capable of independently carrying out the responsibilities of his office, could classified information have been accessed, discussed, or even documented by individuals quietly running his office behind the scenes? More broadly, what safeguards exist to ensure that classified congressional materials remain protected if a member of Congress becomes unable to personally perform the duties of the office? And finally, what information, if any, did Elaine Chao have with her when she met Chinese Vice President Han Zheng On June 17, 2026, just 3 days after her husband, Mitch McConnell, reportedly suffered cardiac arrest. Given how difficult many aspects of this story are to independently verify, the entire situation has left many voters with the impression that one of America's longest-serving and most powerful Republican senators is caught in an extraordinarily unusual and deeply confusing set of circumstances. These unanswered questions have also fueled speculation among some commentators that Elaine Chao may have acted on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party and exercised significant influence over McConnell for years under the guise of being his spouse. Some have even speculated, without publicly available evidence, that after McConnell became incapacitated by his medical emergency, Chao immediately returned to China to share information she may have possessed with senior Chinese officials. Meanwhile, Mitch McConnell's daughter, Porter McConnell, reportedly appears to have deleted her account on X, formerly Twitter. In the past, Porter McConnell frequently used that account to criticize both her father and the Republican Party, particularly during the confirmation hearings for Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Politically, Porter McConnell has generally been viewed as aligning more closely with Democratic positions than with those of her father. After McConnell's hospitalization, her X account reportedly disappeared. Some online commentators have questioned whether she was asked to remain silent in order to avoid drawing attention to her father's medical condition, or to protect interests related to the family's estate. Others argue that the timing may simply be a coincidence. At this point, there is no public evidence supporting either explanation. Another question concerns the capacity in which Elaine Chao met with China's vice president while her husband, a sitting U.S. senator, was recovering from a serious medical emergency. Since resigning as Secretary of Transportation on January 7, 2021, Chao has held no official position within the U.S. government. Because she is now a private citizen, some commentators have suggested that the meeting raises questions regarding the Logan Act, a U.S. law that restricts unauthorized private citizens from negotiating with foreign governments on matters involving the United States. Some have therefore speculated that, depending on the nature of any discussions, Chao could have raised issues under the Logan Act. Others have further speculated that if legal questions ever arose, remaining in China could complicate any potential prosecution because China does not have an extradition treaty with the United States. However, no public evidence has established that Elaine Chao violated the Logan Act or engaged in any unlawful conduct. If she was acting solely as a private citizen while participating in discussions related to U.S.-China relations, some commentators argue that the U.S. State Department should clarify the circumstances. According to that view, the State Department should publicly answer several questions. Was the meeting officially authorized by the U.S. government? In what capacity did Elaine Chao attend? Was she granted any authority to conduct those discussions? Although Elaine Chao no longer serves in government, she was still able to secure a private meeting with China's vice president, an opportunity that would be unavailable to most ordinary citizens. Critics argue that this alone raises additional questions. President Donald Trump has previously criticized Elaine Chao over her family's business ties to China. For that reason, many Americans believe they deserve to know the true purpose of this meeting. The issue has become even more significant because there is still no clear public information regarding Mitch McConnell's current medical condition. Once again, there has been no independent public confirmation of McConnell's present condition, nor has there been official confirmation regarding whether Elaine Chao has returned to the United States. Some commentators have also argued that McConnell's Senate vote could prove critical to the future of President Trump's proposed Save America Act. They point out that only 3 days after McConnell reportedly collapsed and was hospitalized, Elaine Chao traveled to Beijing to meet senior Chinese Communist Party officials. From there, some online speculation has gone much further, suggesting, without publicly available evidence, that she may have traveled to China to receive instructions, destroy documents, or prepare future plans. Regarding Elaine Chao's background, she is the daughter of a Chinese-American family that built a major international shipping business. Critics argue that her decision to leave the United States immediately after her husband's medical emergency appears suspicious. Others say the more troubling question is whether McConnell himself could be vulnerable to manipulation or exploitation if he were no longer capable of managing his own affairs. Some commentators have gone so far as to speculate that McConnell may no longer be able to oversee his official responsibilities, while others manage classified intelligence materials on his behalf, raising concerns, again without publicly available evidence, that sensitive information could potentially be exposed to China. Supporters of this view argue that it is time for President Donald Trump and the U.S. State Department to publicly address these questions, and that a thorough investigation should determine what, if anything, has actually taken place.